What if we told you the rapture you believe in is wrong? Many people believe it's a prophecy that will reunite Jesus with his believers and will be his return to the earth, marking end times. Well, we just found out this may be a lie. And trust us, this is crazy. Our team used a military psychic tool called remote viewing, which lets them see the future of our world. What's interesting is they didn't get back any Jesus. We had some energy which felt like a biblical reference in meteoroids. But what we mostly saw was aliens, and how the rapture is a wrapped-up story made by aliens, ones that are actually on Mars. And apparently, we are repeating history by believing in it. Along with the law of ones or alien abduction, it's all the same story. Now, some of you may think we're crazy, and none of this is true. Well, the team do a lot of other verifiable sessions and are incredibly accurate, so what they see could be true. If you would like to see the full truth about the rapture and end times, go to our bio.
Tie that all back now to your rapture scenario, to your law of one, and we have this possible influence of some kind of external force. And you said it seemed more scientific. I mean, the life forms behind this. I mean, what kind of information do your data suggest about them?
Some of it.
You're muted. Oh, there you go.
Oh yeah, some of it. In certain parts of it, I would say some of it does feel very negative and scary. Other parts of it feel more detached and higher level, kind of the way you would look at an insect or something,
Right.
It's not like you're not looking at the insect like the same way you look at your dog or an animal. So there's definitely different levels, levels to the phenomenon. In the rapture session, some of the ideas, I saw what would be, like the gray type being, big head, big eyes, skinny body. And the concepts there with that was the sense of like an edited gene pool, almost like becoming a new species and trying to preserve that species. A sense of almost like them needing our help.
Mm-hmm.
And so
that comes out a lot too. Right? We've heard that for years in the abduction tales, right?
Yeah. The sense of like they got to do what they got to do to preserve themselves,
right?
And they kind of have like no regrets, in what they're doing. So I guess that would kind of be what feels like more of a negative, from our perspective, more
negative for us, right?
Yeah, I mean, negative for us for sure.
Evil can be a matter of perspective sometimes, right?
Exactly.
Depending on which side you're on.
Yeah. So, I saw bodies on beds and people overlooking them, and it was very much like test subjects.
Yeah.
Like, will they pass? Will they be integrated? Becoming something new, defying the odds. And it felt like on the other end of it was a heightened sense of mind, or being almost like a superhuman or a genius.
Yeah.
Through these upgrades and implants. So, maybe somewhere down the road, there's that offer made where it's like, hey, this is a chance for us to go to the next level through, whatever type of modification processes that we have by then. I mean, it's already getting pretty crazy. With the VR stuff is starting to pick up now.
Yeah.
Transhumanism is kind of, it's maybe not in our personal lives. It's not that
but it's
high,
here.
But it's here. And, the idea of AI replacing people or being the desirable oracle in certain situations is becoming more common. People can see that happening now, whereas they couldn't really imagine what that would be like, a couple years ago.
Yeah, but there was this kind of notion here of a technological element that worked along with the ancient idea, which brought up, and when I was thinking about it during the debrief of how the two might relate, and in this kind of collapsed timeline kind of thing of like an ancient idea, or how do I want to, what's the right word for it? Like I'm trying to find the right word for it, where you have something, an ancient, a goal or a place to go. But then when this actually happens, all this time goes by, and then it is time to go, and then the timeline collapses, and you're just a point within it. And that was the notion with that. And there was also this idea that there were a fracturing of like earthly people and non-earthly people, and that would be a good thing, where the quote-unquote non-earthly people are going to go where they want to go, and then the earthly people stay. And the relief that comes from that, like the non-earthly people will no longer have to feel so frustrated, and the earthly people will not have to feel so intimidated, and so they separate, and both are much happier as a result.
Meaning people that are, we're not talking like aliens here, right? We're talking people who are human here on Earth, but maybe energetically need to be somewhere else.
Something along those lines. Let me see if I can find a page, and I'll read it to you.
That's the part of it in the Bible with the rapture, right? Where those who are saved just up and disappear, correct?
That is the notion. But though I have heard some people debating of whether or not, well, apparently the word rapture doesn't show up in the Bible, I think, but I'm not 100% sure.
It's the book of Revelations, I believe, right?
Well, I think there's a couple different spots in there where they make reference of people rejoining the godly realm or something like that.
Right.
But the actual use of the term rapture, I'm not 100% sure if
where that came from.
Actually in there. Someone may have added that in.
Right.
But let me see if I can find the spot here that I think you might find interesting in regards to whether or not it's a good thing to have this level of separation.
Yeah.
So I'm going through this thing and all this stuff is happening. And there was this mass belief campaign, between these two fracturing sides. So because there was two fracturing sides, that required a mass belief campaign. So I wanted to explore how that might be resolved. And this is what I wrote here. I can see a calming point out in the distance. The calm, though, seems due to the separation of the unwilling from the willing. This separation is a good thing for both sides. The notion is that quote-unquote people of Earth separate from quote-unquote people not of Earth. Some type of pact is made or figured out, and it's a good thing. This helps to relieve the tension and disappointment from both sides. Those who stay and those who leave, like the Supremes leave and the meek inherit. And I wrote, it's very biblical sounding.
Wow. Yeah.
That was the feeling of it.
Where do you think they're going, Edward? Those that left?
Mars. That was the main element of that in this session. So
let me ask you this: with your session and with kind of the things you've gotten as feedback, these people are going to Mars. Is this a physical, like, are they physically being transported? Or are we talking their consciousness, energy? I mean, what are we looking at here in your opinion?
In my opinion, it was a physical relocation.
Mm-hmm.
And where they're not here anymore. They're gone.
Mm-hmm.
and as a result, it's like a bad marriage comes to an end or something like that.
Yeah.
And the two go their separate ways, and they're both a lot happier as a result. It's like a mismatch, you know, a real mismatch that tried to fool themselves or something like that, you know. And there was never going to be a match. And so
right.
the feeling and the notion that came in there was that at, you know, once the time is right, then the separation occurs.
Right.
And it's a great relief on both sides. And I remember going through that in the debrief and just saying, you know, God, I hope that happens, man. I hope that's true. I hope that's true.
Right. Right.
I don't know if any of this is true, but what I can say is I hope that's true.
You hope it's. I'm thinking about a lot of things on that. Number one, my question is, you know, it seems that there was a civilization on Mars. Did they evacuate and did they come here? And is that what we're dealing with here? Is people with that Mars DNA that might vibrate at a different frequency, trying to be Earth people, realizing, oh, let's go home. And if you think about how our electromagnetic fields work with one another and harmonize and resonate, and if you have something that's not in harmony with your own, that would create that disharmony and that dis-ease among people that you're around. If that was to completely separate planet-wide, that would have an impact, I would think, just in our own mental health, our own energy, our own feeling. And again, I'm just being creative and spitballing here, but
I agree with that. And you know, I was just thinking now, like in there, I have the reference to the meek inheriting the earth. You know,
right?
Biblical phrase.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about it in terms of this idea. And what if that's what that phrase means? The meek inherit the earth when the invaders leave.
Yeah.
Or whatever you want to call them. Maybe not.
I mean, they could have been refugees for all we know, right? But
yeah,
that doesn't mean they don't come in and totally change a population.
Yeah.
When they show up.
Maybe that's what that means. You know, when the meek inherit the earth, it means the other ones finally have what they need to go home or whatever.
They went home. Their planet's restored enough for them to go back.
Maybe
that's Elon Musk. Maybe he's putting that together.
Maybe he is.
Yeah.
You know, maybe he is.
Wow. So where do you go from there? I mean, you know, did you have, you know, besides that one piece of data, any other data points come out in your session that stand out to you?
Well, there was a technological factor.
Oh boy. See, I resisted the temptation to go there. I was like, I could easily make this connection to a whole bunch of other things, but I'm not going to go there because I always go there with Edward.
Well, you can see it, you know. I mean, it's right there, you know.
All right, let's. All right, we're going there, buddy.
I enjoy drawing that so much.
Yeah, that's a great drawing.
I put a lot of time into that. Because when I was done doing it, I was looking at it and I'm like, they're the same thing. It's just from a different era.
Yeah.
And that blew my mind, man. You know?
Yeah.
Because when I'm drawing it, I'm thinking, well, you know, this one is handing this to this one. And then I'm looking at it, I'm like, no, they're the same. They're just from a different era.
Yeah.
They're the same entity. And that just blew my mind, man. It just blew me away. That's what it looked like then. This is what it looks like now.
Right, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, and that's how they interpreted the technology then, and this is how I was like, oh wow, that is so great. I'm so glad I took the time to draw that. You know, and got inspired to draw that.
It's insightful. So you have this technological piece now. What did that look like in your session? What kind of data was this tech giving you?
It was dealing with the two sides. Again, I got to try to remember this, but there was the two sides that I was classifying was I was calling the moon goddess side and the brain implant side, and and again, as I was exploring those, they kind of continue to kind of funnel down, getting closer and closer, you know, just like talking about that, you know, where when you funnel them down, they're the same thing basically, you know,
meaning moon goddess and brain implant are the same thing.
Whereas if you take those two things, moon goddess over here, brain implant over here, and you dissect what moon goddess means, you know, and you dissect what brain implant means, you're somewhere down the list of its meanings, they're going to basically mean the same thing, you know? And
when we look at what tech does, and when we look at what, you know, human intuition can do right now, wireless communication is, if you break it down to its basic, it's transference of information through energy. I think that speaks to exactly what you're talking about. There's a component that's like, this is the same.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's kind of how I saw that. And because again, I'm unraveling this thing now as we're talking. I'm trying to unravel it, you know. And you know, it's starting to get a little bit clearer to me. Like in that drawing, you know, you have Isis and the Ankh, and then you have the moon over her head and all that, you know, all this imagery, and then the modern technological imagery is, you know, it's the same. Look at the top of the head here, the top of the head, you know, and that's like the timeline collapse that I was trying to describe, you know.
Could that speak
probably
to,
not that great, but I was trying my best, you know. I think that possibly, and I'll go back to you know, this meek inheriting the earth thing has been ringing in my head ever since that session. And I think that just like with the AI aspect of it, you know, like I like to say I'm pro AI and I'm pro human. And the goal of it is to have a harmony between the two and not a disharmony between either side. And that philosophy also applies in my mind to this idea of meek inheriting the earth, where finding some type of balance in living is probably one of the top goals, and it's out, and it apparently is a very difficult thing to try to achieve or maintain. Probably more difficult to maintain than it is to achieve. And for maybe because humans are so innately driven to invent and we're obsessively curious, and you know, this inner fire and drive to continually manifest bring new things into the world, you know. It's like insatiable desire to do that. And maybe it's trying to find the balance within that, you know, to find some kind of harmony in this program that we're in.
I think we're constantly searching for harmony. I mean, I think if we had perfect harmony, there'd be no growth, right? So I think we sway both ways. Hey, everything's really, really good right now, but that's not sustainable. So then it's like, oh, we reached that, and then we reach that balance point, but then things start to fall out of balance. Like, oh, everything's really, really bad right now. So then we strive to get back, and it's that teetering back and forth to find that harmony. Now we bring AI into the picture here, with what you're seeing in your session. The question I was going to ask before you tied into Mars, and I was trying to stay away from tech, but then it's in your session. do you think that Ascension could be tied into like turning the chip on, and then they're saying, "Oh,
that may be." I had that in here, and I talked about it in the debrief. That what if that was the case?
Yeah, man.
Where that could be a part of it. So I don't know, because there's the idea of that Ascension may be people, in a laboratory with their brains in a neural net or cloud net or whatever, and they're in some kind of a cyber synthetic world, and that's an Ascension. But the sense from I can only go from my remote viewing on this, but
right.
The stronger sense was a separation taking place.
A physical separation
at some point in the future.
Okay.
Yeah. That would solve a lot more problems than having people in a matrix or something like that.
Right. Right.
Because I mean, you can't. That's not sustainable. To put somebody into an AI-induced synthetic world that you're telling them is an Ascension world. That's just not sustainable. What about when their body fails them?
Well, I mean, you hear rumors now of them uploading consciousness, right? So what if you can upload your consciousness or a copy of it into some kind of sustainable server? You don't need the body anymore. It's just there. That's the universe that it exists in now. Instead of going layers up to escape, right, or reach higher levels, you're going a layer down, but you're still in another realm here. Your consciousness is still in another realm. You might not need your physical body at that point if it's
I have another warning to give. I never believed in UFOs. I never have. I have been wanting to post this on our ministry site at amightywind.com for some time, but I've never done it. I must be in obedience today. I had a dream, and it was months ago, because I would ask him about the UFOs. I would say, "Oh, this is silly, right, Yeshua?" And then I had this dream. I saw people running in a panic. They were in a city, and they were running. And the city had, oh, how I wish I could draw it for you. It almost looked like a cigar shape, and then it had fins coming out, 2 fins coming out of it. That's the only way. I've never seen anything shaped like this before. When I look at the UFO pictures, maybe they're there and I just don't know it. Well, what I saw was these ships. Listen carefully, people. This is why I call his name Yeshua, not Jesus. Yeshua, because this is just another reason why I saw these look like bird legs coming down. That's the only way I can describe it. Like a child would draw bird legs, mechanical legs come down, and they were snatching the people. You know who they were snatching? They were snatching the ones crying out, "Jesus, help me." I saw it. And then those legs came, and I couldn't outrun this thing. And these legs came down, and then they would snatch these people right up and take them to the into the belly of that ship, for lack of better words. And then it came down on me, and I was looking at it, and I said, "Yeshua, prove to me that you hear me pray. Help me." And those things were coming up, and then all of a sudden, they couldn't touch me. And they raised back up, and they went to the next person over, who was yelling, "Jesus, help me." Now, what I take that to mean, and that meaning of that dream, of course, calling him the name of Jesus is not the problem. It is because the so-called top Christian churches are talking about the coming of Jesus Christ again, but they're going to set the people up for a false rapture. And they were grabbing the people yelling, "Jesus, help me." That tells me that they were the Christian churches who didn't know to call them up, but they could not touch me. I understand. And you know what I thought about? The top ministers once truly did belong to Yeshua. They sold out because they wanted that fame, they wanted that fortune, they let the walk-ins come, they gave their life to Satan, and the crowd just keeps on following them because they remember these preachers the way they were. And now they're setting them up. And I've already been given a warning. I've been given prophecies about the blue beam rapture. this is, a lot of people are going to disappear.
So you think you want to go to heaven, eh? You hope to spend eternity happily reunited with your loved ones, maybe floating around in the clouds and playing a harp, and generally doing whatever it is you want to do in blissful harmony. Something like that, right? Well, that's a popular concept of what heaven is like. But if you believe the Bible is true, then what really matters is what it actually says about where Christians will end up after death, right? Well, interestingly, there's nothing in the Bible that specifically says Christians will actually go to heaven. The closest statement is likely in Luke chapter 23, verse 43, where Jesus said, "Truly I say to you, today you shall be with me in paradise." Although that may have been a one-time thing, and it doesn't necessarily mean he was talking about heaven. Supposedly, the word Jesus used for paradise translates as park. Regardless, apparently the redeemed will become citizens of the city of New Jerusalem, which will descend from heaven to a new earth that lacks any oceans. I should point out that if the city descends from heaven, then it's not likely to be heaven. But since God will supposedly be hanging out there, a lot of Christians would say it might as well be heaven. Revelation chapter 21 describes New Jerusalem as basically a glowing 1,400-mile cube made of pure gold and decorated with gemstones, surrounded by a 200-foot-thick outer wall with 3 pearly gates in each wall. Its residents will have physical bodies and consume food and drink, and they will spend forever worshiping God and working as public administration authorities. For their efforts, some will be rewarded with crowns. St. Thomas Aquinas said that the saints may enjoy their beatitude and the grace of God more abundantly. They are permitted to see the punishment of the damned in hell. So perhaps one of the activities enjoyed in heaven will be watching people being tortured horrifically. Even if any of that sounds appealing to you, you may not be all that thrilled about what the afterlife has in store for your mind. If you believe you have free will now, despite Ephesians chapter 1 verse 11 indicating otherwise, will you retain your free will after death? According to the Bible, there is no evil in heaven. But does that mean those who go there will still have the ability to choose to sin? Many Christians believe that they will retain their free will, but that they will no longer want to sin. But if that option exists, then how is that any different from not having free will? And why didn't God create humanity exactly the same way in the first place, possessing free will but never wanting to sin, thus preventing thousands of years of horribly cruel and unnecessary suffering? On the other hand, if you lose your free will in heaven, then God is apparently fine with having robots worship him. So what was the point of ever giving us free will in the first place? Either option seriously calls into question God's morality or intelligence, and neither option allows for true free will. But that's not the worst of it. Isaiah chapter 65 verse 17 says, "For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered nor come to mind." That's right. You won't remember your life on earth. Your memories will be wiped clean. Some apologists point to verse 16 of the same chapter where it says, "For the past troubles will be forgotten and hidden from my eyes," and they claim it indicates that only your past troubles will be forgotten, not all of your memories. But that would cause a contradiction with verse 17. The only way both verses can be true is if all your memories are erased. It would mean that although your Christian loved ones will also be in heaven, you won't remember them. But it would also explain how you can remain blissfully happy even though you're watching your non-Christian loved ones burning in hell. So there you have it. According to the Bible, salvation means having your memories erased and any true free will stripped from you, assuming it ever existed in the first place, and then being sent to live in a giant metal cube where you'll worship your overlord master for all eternity. If that's heaven, then it doesn't sound all that much better than hell, does it? So, thanks, but I want no part of it. Fortunately, it doesn't look like even the vast majority of Christians will make it into heaven. After all, Jesus was very clear that wealthy people have very little chance of getting into heaven, and anyone watching this video is almost certainly exceedingly wealthy by the standards of biblical times. But if you make it there anyway, have fun. As they say, ignorance is bliss, so you should be ecstatic indeed.